Hey, so if you've been wanting to learn how to use React, Zod, PNPM workspaces, Drizzle, Vite, React Query, Docker, Tailwind CSS, Hono, ShatCN, TypeScript, of course, Postgres, and more in a single project, this video is for you. So welcome, my name is Jorge and we are going to build a book management system. This is a multi-series video that will continue to grow as we refine the details of our app. And for the first video, we are going to cover how to set up a PNPM monorepo with workspaces. Then we're going to add a UI package with Vite and an API with Hono also as a package. We are also going to implement Drizzle in our API. And we're going to create a Docker configuration with Postgres so we can connect to our database. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's create our directory. And now let's do PNPM init to create our package.json. And now to create a monorepo structure or workspace, we need to create a PNPM-workspace.yml. I am going to place all our packages under their own directory. So let's create another directory here called packages. Now let's update our workspace file. Let's open up VS Code. Let's define our packages structure here. We can add a packages/star to create packages for every single directory in our file structure, but I will just name each one of them. For the next step, we are going to create our KPI, and for that we are going to use Hono. Going to the documentation, we can quickly grab the kickstart command here. We're using PNPM. Copy that, and then in packages at this point, I want to create my API. So target directory, let's just call it API. And for template, let's just keep it simple and use Node.js. I don't want to install dependencies. Now we can see we have our API under packages with all the scripts created by the Hono installer. Next, we want to create our UI. For our UI, we can use Vite to quick start a simple React app. Let's go take a look at Vite. And let's use the scaffold command. For the UI, let's just call it UI. And let's choose React with TypeScript. And that's it. So now we have a couple of packages here, right? Our API with Hono and our UI with TypeScript. Now let's go install the dependencies from the parent directory in dashboard by doing pnpm install. And as you can see, each package has node modules, and the parent package also has node modules. So now how can we run both packages in dev mode at the same time? If I go to my API package, can I do pnpm run dev? I have a server running for our API. But if I want to run our UI in dev mode, I need to go there and do the same. Well, there's a better way to do so. From the main package.json, I want to run in a recursive way all the dev scripts in my packages because my API has a dev script here and the UI also has a dev script here. And also I can add stream to improve the output in the console from the child processes. Let's give it a try. And there it is. So now we are running both scripts at the same time, and we can go take a look. Let's see our UI here. There's our app. And for our API, we can open that in the port 3000 And there is our message from our Hono API. For this project, we're going to need a database. So our API can store, fetch, and create new entries. So up next, we are going to create a Docker Compose file where we are going to define our Postgres database. Before we continue, I think it's a good idea to initialize a Git repo. For now, I'm just going to add everything that we have created. Let's quickly create a git ignore file so we don't commit our node modules. And I think we're ready to go. Now let's commit our files. Great. Now let's move forward with the creation of our Docker Compose file. Let's define a service for our database. We can use 17.5. The 18 looks like it's in beta. That we are going to define a few environment variables for our database. A name for the database, PostgreSDB library, the Postgres user. Let's just call it admin, and Postgres password. For now, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We also want to define a volume for our Docker Compose. This is going to guarantee that when we stop and take down our Docker service, the data stays consistent and persistent. And let's define also mapping port so we can actually access the database in the port 5432. And then we need to define the volume, which is going to be the same name as we have here. All right. And I noticed that I was missing something here. This has to be a mapping. Now let's give a try to our Docker Compose. Let's do Docker Compose up. And since I don't have the image in my machine, this is going to start downloading. And it looks like I already have something running in 432 from another project. So instead, what we are going to do is we're going to use a different port for this, 354, and give it a try again. And there it is. Once we run Docker, we are seeing all the logs. We don't want to do that. If we want to do the logs, we can go to our Docker dashboard, can see them, but let's just run them silently with the -t flag. That wraps up the Docker Compose file and all the setup for our database. Later, we are going to use these environment variables in a .env file to connect to the database from the API. Next up in the process, we are going to add Drizzle to our Hono API. Let's take a look at the website. We want to do Drizzle with Postgres, so now we need to start working on this file structure. We do have an src directory. We need a Drizzle directory where migrations will be generated. Within src, we need also a db directory, and inside of it, a file schema.ts, and under src, our index.ts file, which right now we have with Hono, but then we will figure out a way to make both coexist in a nice way. A .nb file, drizzle-config.ts, and that's it. Now, step one, we add our dependencies just like this. Go to the terminal, to our API directory, and we add this, and now Drizzle kits, tsx, and types. So now our env file will need the database URL to connect to the database, 5434, and then finally the name of our database we're going to call library. Oh, and the user password are just the same user and passwords that you defined in your Docker Compose. So user admin password 123456. Now we can initialize the database connection. Later we can move this somewhere else, so it's out of the index file. But for now, we're going to keep it here. Next step, we are going to create our schema. in schema.js. I'm gonna copy this, put it here, but instead of creating a table users, let's create a table books. And for now, let's have an ID, a title, and nothing else. Let's keep it very simple. Next step, set up the Drizzle config file. I'm gonna copy this configuration like so, and let's take a look real quick here. This is a file that we use with DrizzleKit. DrizzleKit is a tool that allows us to manage migrations. It also has this nice utility called the Studio. We are gonna explore that soon. So the out config is Drizzle. Here is where all our migrations are going to live. The schema points to our schema.js file. The dialect is, in our case, Postgres. If you're using MySQL or something else, you will have to change this here. And then the credential is the URL that we have set in our env file. Okay, now let's give it a try. Let's see what happens when we do Drizzle push. Make sure that we are in API, npx drizzle kit push. If everything is okay, is going to apply the changes directly to the database. This is useful for when we are developing in local. If we want to generate a migration, we use DrizzleKit generate, and then we apply the migrations with the DrizzleKit migrate. Let's see what happens if we do DrizzleKit generate. Okay, DrizzleKit generates our SQL file and this metadata that is managed internally by Drizzle. We don't touch that, I guess. But let's see what happens if we try to add or migrate our changes. Oops. So here we have an issue. It says that this relationship already exists, and I'm guessing this is because previously we did Drizzle push and everything is already created in the database. Let's see what happens if we do DrizzleKit Studio. This should start an instance in where we can take a look at how the database is looking like, which is pretty handy. There is a table for books, there is the ID, and there is a title. And we can actually go here and add records if we want. Let's see what happens if we add a new column to our table. Integer, not null, like that. So at this point, what I want is to create a new migration file. Here, if you look at this, we can see that this is making a change on the table books, adding the column year, integer, not null. So I went ahead and pushed the changes directly. And if we do Studio again, now we have our year column added there. Great. So it looks like the connection is working as expected. Maybe we can try writing a quick endpoint to create an entry in our books table. Hono makes it super easy and straightforward to create endpoints. We use our app object, which is our Hono instance, then .post to indicate that this is a post endpoint, and it's going to be a post /book. We are going to extract field from the context. Let's return a JSON status 200. This is just for testing purposes, but give this a quick test. I am going to use Insomnia, which is kind of like a version, or I would say an alternative to Postman. So if I do a GET request to localhost 300, we should be getting this response here. Oop, I forgot to start our server, so PNPM dev. There we go. Now, there it is. Hello, Hono. And now if I do post on /book, I should be getting this JSON object with the status 200. Like that. Great. So that's all wired up. I'm going to send this JSON object as opposed to my endpoint. So now that I made my endpoint callback and async function, I can get the values from the application JSON request with an await. And now from here, we can just go and say new book is going to be the newly created book. We can say title, body.title, and year. And now finally, we are going to insert this new book object to the database. Insert in the books table, values, new book. And then if we actually want to get the resulting object, we need to do returning at the end. So now instead of returning this test object, you can just return it like that. Okay, let's give it a try. Cool. Let's create a second one. I don't know, Marvel Avengers. I don't know if that's even a book or not, but who cares? Boop. Great. The API returns 200, returns the recently created object. Now we can maybe go take a look at ResultKit Studio. Oops, not here. I'm trying to run ResultKit Studio at the dashboard level, but we need to do it from packages, API. Nice. We have our couple of entries in the database. So I think I'm going to just leave this video to this point. And then a second part, we're going to continue working on the project. But so far we have the API ready to serve data connected to Postgres. Our monorepo is also in place with the initial code for the UI and even the Docker Compose file for our database. So you don't have to install manually Postgres in your machine. In the next video, we will switch it up to the front end and we will set up the rest of the React application. And we will use ChatCN to build the dashboard. See you soon.